Hey guys, over the last couple of years, I've had loads of people ask me how they can support the show, and now you can. So if you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. Thanks for all you do. If you're a business owner and you want to increase your cash flow, or if you're a label or artist and you want to promote new music, then listen up. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey guys, I got to tell you a quick story. I recently put in a pair of EMG pickups into my Les Paul Classic. And tinkering with electronics, wires, not my bag. That being said, a little over an hour later, I'd installed the pickups with literally no problems at all. And the quality of the sound is absolutely amazing. I put in the Retroactive Fat 55s. That's a new set that they have, and that's because I wanted a vintage, British Brown sound. And these Fat 55s are modeled after the tone of the classic PAFs, which is exactly what I got. The thing I wasn't expecting is it sort of feels like my volume and tone knobs have been expanded to 20. There's like a lot more responsiveness in the volume and tone, and I could even get harmonics now at low volumes on the neck pickup, and any preconceived notions I had about installation being difficult or, there's a problem having a battery in there were totally wrong. The battery thing, it's like putting a battery in one of my kids' toys when they were little children growing up. It's just a total non-issue. And in fact, I'm going to wind up getting the Strat set next because installation for that is even easier because it comes with the pick guard and the pickup's already attached to the pick guard. And if you want to check out EMGs for yourself, now's actually a great time to do this because Rob and Allison are making a special offer available for listeners of this show only. And here it is. For a limited time, head on over to emgpickups.com, buy one or more sets of pickups, and enter ELG in the discount code section of the shopping cart. ELG, of course, for Everyone Loves Guitar. And they're going to give you 15% off, which is huge. The biggest discounts they ever give is 10%. Plus, they're going to give away $70 worth of free bonuses, including an EMG cinch bag, a pick tin, lanyard, stickers, and a t-shirt. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee if you're not 100% satisfied. Plus, not a 2-year performance guarantee on the performance of the actual pickups themselves, but a lifetime performance guarantee. And on top of everything else, you're going to get free shipping. So there's basically no risk at all here for you to try a set or two of EMG pickups. And the great thing about these pickups is, and I got 2 sets, once you install them, and by the way, there's no soldering involved at all, because I couldn't have done it if there was, quite frankly. But once you do install them, all you need to do to swap them out and put another set in is literally disconnect one wire on each pickup, and then you're done. That's it. It's kind of like putting Legos together. It's that easy. So go to emgpickups.com, enter ELG in the shopping cart for your discount code, and that's it. You get to take advantage of this offer right now. Man, this one's always a big challenge. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And man, I'm so excited to do this interview. We're with the one and only Eddie Martinez. He is just a legend in so many different ways. I've really had the good fortune to meet Eddie. You know, we hit it off and have become buddies. Just a great quality human being, and I'm really happy to introduce a lot of you that may not know Eddie, both as a great guy and as just a tremendous player. And I will look you in the eye and tell you his album is literally the best record I've heard this year. So we're going to talk about that. It's called Akosua, Akosua. And we're going to get into that. Before we get started, I want to say, number one, thank you, Lyle Workman, for hooking us up. Lyle, I need to name a wing after Everyone Loves Guitar compound here after Lyle. So this is going to be a long show. Sit back and relax. Also, I just want to tell you up front, Eddie's not only a great dude, he's the smartest and most well-read guy I've ever met. So get your dictionary. He's going to use a bunch of SAT words. You know, you have to groove with it. Anyway,
man, I never took my SAT, man. I think I had breakfast instead. At the Mount Eaton Diner, man. Mount Eaton
out-qualified. That's what, you didn't need the SAT, man. So let me tell you about Eddie's background. Eddie's originally from South Ozone Park in Queens. He lived in Hollis, Queens, where Run DMC comes from, until he was 9. And then he spent most of his years in the South Bronx, the Bronx, and Westchester. And he considers the South Bronx his home. He began as a lead singer in a top 40 band at age 14. And what a voice he has, man. Here you go. Just a couple of years after 14, and his voice is still amazing. And he started playing guitar at age 14 and playing professionally at 15. By the time he was 16 and 17, he was playing in the rock and roll revival scene, and he was gigging around town. He got a tip from Nile Rodgers, who lived around the corner from him. You must have been living in Manhattan then, right? Or was Nile living in the Bronx?
In the Bronx, yeah, Clay Avenue.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Anthony Avenue literally lived right around the corner from me.
I didn't know that. I thought he lived. I know he lived down in the East Village, I think.
He did live in the Village, and I think he also lived in Brooklyn for a minute as well.
Oh.
And, yeah, I mean, we were kind of nomadic in those days, man. Because I mean, thinking about growing up in Ozone Park, then Hollis, and then the Lower East Side for about 6 months for me, and I hated it.
Well, it was so bad back then. That was really bad, the Lower East Side.
Oh, man, the Smith Projects was no joke. And then we moved to the South Bronx, which, I mean,
you're moving on up.
Moving on up, man. Yeah, 5-story tinderbox, man. You know, that building was fucking old. Holy shit, man. It was old.
So, hang on, man. Let me just read this. I want to get into so Nile Rodgers turned Eddie onto a gig where he auditioned for a band called Mother Night. He got the gig. They got signed to Columbia late 71 and 72 at age 19. Band broke up in 74. That was a really great education for him because he was playing with cats a lot older than him. He then played with a band called Jay Mason. Is that right, Jay?
Yeah, Jay Mason. That was the next kind of the next step with an artist that had a record deal, and a band was put together for the touring aspects and of it. Yeah, so Jay Mason was that's around 74.
Very cool. And he was playing with Omar Hakim on drums, Denzel Miller on keys, and Larry Smith on bass. And, of course, went on to write and produce Run DMC's groundbreaking rock rap record, which Eddie was also a part of. Then he played with Labelle, where he was playing with Carmine Rojas, and those guys became lifelong buddies, and Carmine played on Eddie's record that he just released last year. That was his first big recording session for Labelle's Chameleon album, and he played alongside Wawa Watson and Rap Parker Jr. He then played with Nona Hendrix after Labelle disbanded. Nona asked him to be part of her band, and he played on her first solo album. And it was groundbreaking in the sense that it was the first time you had an African-American singer and composer doing a full-on rock recording. And they toured the UK and Europe opening for Peter Gabriel. Was Steve Hunter playing with Gabriel at that time?
No, actually it was Sid McGuinness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a great band. Jerry Marotta, Sid McGuinness, Todd Cochran, Tony Levin.
Wow.
It was just after, I think, Larry Fast left the group. Man, that band was a great band. Every night it was a clinic on how it's supposed to be done on that rock level. It was just big. It was majestic. Tony Levin was like just lowering his, I think he had his low E down to a C well before it was prevalent and, common to detune. And he'd be hitting these big low notes and substitutions in the bottom. So cool, man. you know, great experience.
Then, talking about great experience, he played with Lenny White. He made 3 albums with Lenny White in 29. He then toured with Stanley Clarke and George Duke in the early 80s. He toured the world with them. And that was really the beginning of kind of the first big shift for Eddie as far as the education he got from from Lenny and George and his bandmates. Then played with Blondie in 1982, I think, taking Chris Stein's place for a little bit when he was.
It was actually Frankie Infante, I think.
Okay.
The second guitarist. It was taking his place.
83, Eddie made a personal and concerted decision to try to break into the session scene in Manhattan to stay off the road. He had a young child, and he connected with producer Bernard Edwards from Chic, and Bernard invited Eddie to play on his first solo record called Glad to Be Here, as well as tons of other recordings, and allowed Eddie to start crafting his own sound. I want to read you a list of some of Eddie's credits. I mean, we'd be here for 3 hours just reading this, but let me just, skim this. Celine Dion, Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell 2. Robert Palmer, he played on Riptide and Heavy Nova and Don't Explain. He played on Addicted to Love, I Didn't Mean to Turn You On, which is just one of my favorite good songs of Robert Palmer's, and Simply Irresistible. He played on Back in the High Life with Steve Winwood, Rod Stewart, Mick Jagger, She's the Boss, Tina Turner, Foreign Affair, Run DMC, King of Rock, what a cool record, and Rockbox. David Lee Roth, Crazy from the Heat, Joe Cocker, Stanley Clarke, Yoko Ono, Bonnie Tyler. Bonnie is still touring, funny enough, Eddie. Cher. He played with the Sisters of Mercy. Talk about diversity. He played with Lou Reed. This is Chaka Khan, Billy Ocean, and he had a big list of really successful Japanese artists that I'm not going to try to say because I'll butcher the name, but he played with a lot of Japanese heavyweights. He has worked producers, Desmond Child, Robert Palmer, Ted Templeman, Russ Titleman, Phil Ramone, Nile Rodgers, Jelly Bean Benitez, Hugh Padgham, Eddie Kramer, and Mick Jones. On motion picture TV soundtracks, Burglar, Color of Money, Pretty Woman, Pretty in Pink, Miami Vice, Footloose, Revenge of the Nerds, Shakedown, Stakeout, and Eddie Martinez Production, Justice System, BJ Thomas, Ramsey, Guillermo Villas. This goes on here. World tours with Robert Palmer, Stanley Clarke, George Duke, Ryuichi Sakamoto, Blondie. Played with Paul Schaefer Orchestra on The Late Show with David Letterman when Sid McGuinness was out for a while. Played on The Tonight Show, Live Aid with Mick Jagger and Tina Turner, MTV Video Awards, Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, Hall & Oates, Brian Ferry, Al Green, Sammy Hagar, Jingles, Bud Dry, Britney Spears, the Pepsi Super Bowl jingle, Budweiser, Chevrolet, Coca-Cola, ESPN, HBO theme music, Miller, Nissan, Toys R Us, the USA Network movie themes, Winn-Dixie, Wrigley, Doublemint Gun. Man, I'm done. Nothing left here, Eddie. What a career. And
thanks, Greg.
No, man, this is my real pleasure to know you, man. You're great. And forget the guitar shit. You're just a good guy. Eddie recently, like I said, no bullshit. I'm not saying this because I'm fond of Eddie, but his new record, Akosua, is just phenomenal. It's just incredibly passionate playing. We're going to talk about it today and find out how Eddie made the record. But when I listen to it, it's almost like when what you've put into that. Every time I listen to it, and I've listened to it several times, cover to cover, it's almost like you were playing for your life, man. What you were giving on each song is you could really, hear that, man. So thank you for making that, and thanks for coming on the show.
Craig. It's an honor being on the show, man. It's cool. And thanks for Lyle, to Lyle for hooking us up, man. It's really awesome. Lyle is such a great cat. We go way back, and he's such an incredible musician, incredible guitarist, and and we talk every once in a while about what's moving us and stuff like that. And so we exchange musical kind of deals and stuff. He'll send me something, I'll send him something, and so it's all good. He's a great guy, really super talented.
Very cool. Hey man, so how'd you get gigs at age 15 and where were you playing?
Oh man, the first band was that I was in was called the Joint Effort, and we rehearsed in an apartment in the Bronx, on Clark Place, right off the Grand Concourse near 170th Street.
I know exactly
And
where that is.
we'd rehearse up there, and we were doing. The first gig was like was at a Catholic dance just up the street.
Right, like they used to have on Friday nights or something.
Yeah, I think it was Christ the King or something like that, right on the concourse. And so we did our deal there, and then we eventually started playing in some. I remember us doing some gigs down at NYU.
Really?
Yeah, so like some frat parties and things like that. And
That's pretty cool.
yeah, we used to schlep our gear down there.
That's a haul, man. Just hop on that D train all the way to West 4th Street.
Oh man, drum sets, with trap cases and the Shure Vocal Masters and twin reverbs and Ampeg B12s and B15s. Oh my goodness! And then eventually, one of us, the guy that was like our manager, he was a bit older than we were, and he was able to rent a U-Haul, and then we just load the thing up and go down to the Village. We're down there in Lower Manhattan.
That's cool, man. That's a haul.
Yeah.
So last week or two, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, we were emailing and you literally said, I've had some great quotes that people told me. You had the best quote ever. You said, I went from the D train to a Lear jet. So talk more about that and let everyone listening in know what that story is about. This is a great quote.
Well, that was regarding my tenure with Blondie, and which was was incredible. It was such a whirlwind. Actually, Larry Smith called me up and says, "Yo, Eddie, I hear Blondie's holding auditions, man. I got the digits. You want to give them a call?" I says, "Yeah, sure." So I called up, and they were really cool. Like I got an appointment to go down. I forget what day it was or the week it was, but I remember going down and auditioning, and with I was realistically, I didn't think that I'd fit the casting call for a band like that, so I went down with the feeling that I'm just gonna dime the fucking amp and just like play the way that I play, and really just I just throw caution to the wind and just have fun. I wanted the experience to be fun. I didn't go into the audition thinking that, man, I really need to get this gig. I just went in to have fun and come what may. So I take the D train back home to the Bronx. I was living on Decatur Avenue in those days, right off of Bedford Park Boulevard.
Dude, that's where I used to live.
Yeah.
On Decatur Avenue. That is so funny. Yeah, I lived right off Gun Hill, though. It was a little further west.
Oh, yeah, a little further north. What is it? It could be north, right?
Bedford Park was further west. So I lived a little further east. Gun Hill was a little further east. Bedford Park was like up by, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody else but me and you is going to appreciate this
I know.
Bronx minutia.
I went down, auditioned. It was really cool. Debbie was really sweet. She took a Polaroid of me, and I cranked it up. And we played the tunes, and I felt it went well. And took the D train home. By the time I got home, there was a call for me. I had the gig.
What was it like playing with her? I mean, she had some major hits, and she was so iconic especially in New York.
Yeah, she wasn't even singing. She was in the room.
Oh,
and the band was there. We were just running through the tunes, and I don't recall her singing at all. She was just really listening, and she liked what she heard, and the rest is history.
Holy smokes! How did
Then there's a white stretch limo coming to Decatur Avenue to pick me up, to take me out to Teterboro on a Learjet, man. So it's like, holy shit, man! It's like, it was insane.
Where was your first gig?
First gig, holy cow! Oh, I think it was in Louisiana. It wasn't New Orleans. It was
Baton Rouge, maybe.
I think it was Baton Rouge. It was Baton Rouge. That was the first gig. And then we did a bunch of gigs. like in Virginia, in Georgia. I think I'm trying to figure out how far west we went. But long story short, the tour ended because Chris wasn't well during. He was playing, but he was suffering from some sort of ailment, and was really thin and emaciated, and Debbie felt that she shouldn't go on with the tour. So we were slated to go to Asia, Australia, and do the whole deal. But and good for her. She did what she thought was right.
Any funny rock and roll experiences or stories from that tour that you remember?
I do remember we were rehearsing at the Palladium, which was the Academy of Music.
Right.
So we were doing our pre-production rehearsals in an empty theater, and that's the first time I'd ever done anything on that level. That we're actually rehearsing with stage and lights and the whole production setup, which was for its day was pretty dope. And so when we're taking a break, even though I was a member of the band, I wasn't really technically a member. It was kind of like a hired gun.
Right.
And they were talking about the expense of the Learjet, so there was some serious, discussion and vitriol about that going back and forth.
Oh, because some people wanted it, some people didn't want it, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of in retrospect. Now at an older age, you think, what the hell were they doing? Put the money in your pocket, take first class, even.
Yeah. Oh man, let me tell you that the private Learjet deal is such a luxury. It's something that it's so luxurious. It's something that there's no way you can get used to it from the aspect of like really realizing what an incredible experience it is. We'd have the limos would drive us right to the plane. I didn't have to go through any of this check in, check out shit. It's like the stretch would pull up right to the jet. I'd get off and just get on the plane and boom, And so that was it was great, man. Those things are fast. Takeoffs I love flying, so I'm big on jets, and so the experience of taking off it was a Lockheed 4-star. That was 4 jets on this little thing, and it was a badass jet. I think to take off like crazy.
Very cool. Talk about the Labelle audition.
Oh man. At that time, I only had one guitar, Craig, and it was a 1958 Stratocaster that I bought from Stuyvesant We Buy in New York, which was the place on 48th Street, man. That was the place for guitars, man. If you wanted, those were used guitars in those days. So I got that guitar for $270, and I had an Epiphone Riviera. Traded the Epiphone Riviera, I got $165 for it, and ponied up the difference.
You paid $270 for a 58. What is that? You think today, in today's dollars, probably about still nowhere near what a 58 Strat sells for.
In today's dollars, what a guitar, the condition of the guitar that I bought, because it was a refin. So I think refins now for a Maple Neck Strat has got to be somewhere in the mid-teens. I mean, a one that's straight, is going to be depending on condition, $22,000 to $8,000. So it's incredible.
That's great. Wow.
So I got that guitar. So I had that guitar, and there was a luthier back in those days named Woody Pfeiffer, who's in Woodstock now, I believe. And he was the cat. Prior to John Suhr, Woody Pfeiffer was the cat. Then John Suhr came along, and he was like the cat for setting up guitars and stuff. So I got this audition, and it's like, holy cow, I don't have my guitar. But luckily, the guitar was going to be ready on the day of the audition. So I go to Woody's and pick up my Strat, and then I went straight to the audition with a when you refret a Strat, they kind of plane the board and they have to re-lacquer it, and so it felt like a foreign instrument to me. But I just mulled through because I needed time to get used to it. But got into the audition. There were a bunch of players there, man. A lot of guys that know that they were just. I mean, it was the literal cattle call. There were like, I don't know, 25, 30 guitarists in the room waiting to go in. And I think it was one of the last ones to go in. So I walk in, and Nona was there. I think Patti LaBelle was there, and Sarah Dash was there. And the band, obviously, the band was there. And Carmine was already in the band at that point, Carmine Rojas. And so I walk in with a white Strat and bell bottoms and white clogs. and a
White
big
clogs.
yeah.
There you
So I walked in, and
go. You had your bushy fro back in the day.
oh yeah, I had a freaking badass fro, man. That shit was like, it had fire escapes on the side. It was like, so I plug in, and then instead of playing a Hendrix riff, I laid out a Jeff Beck riff, and Carmine noticed me playing a Jeff Beck riff, and we were both, as huge Hendrix fans, but we were huge Jeff Beck fans as well. So we got along famously, and then it was down between. Then I was asked to come the second day, and the final day rather, and it was between me and two other guitarists, and we had a shootout, and I was the last man standing.
Wow. Are the other two guys around musically? And if you don't want to say who they are, that's totally cool.
Actually, I don't remember the one of the guys' names, but I do remember the other guy he was a really good player and still a great player. His name is Kevin Shreve. He's Michael Shreve's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, so I was last man standing. So I was kind of thrilled, and then just had to learn like a 2-hour show, and then we got another drummer, Tony Thompson, and I'd met Tony Thompson at an audition for Stevie Wonder like the year before, and we exchanged numbers, and they said, we're looking for a drummer. I says, man, and I'd heard Tony play and really loved the way he played, and recommended Tony. Tony came in and he got the gig. So it was Carmine, me, and Tony, and then eventually we got Jose Rossi in on percussion, and Jose went on to great things with Weather Report and Talking Heads, and just he also recorded with Chic as well. So that's kind of like, three Puerto Ricans playing like in a rock kind of rock funk kind of deal. It was fun.
That's cool, man. So you had your posse there, which was great, which makes it really nice. And you have all your, your boys there with you to, that's really cool, man. Yes. Hey, I'm going to go through a list of people that you play with. You could talk about how you got the gig and if there's a cool or interesting story that you can recall about your experience with them. Let's start with Lenny White.
Lenny White. Oh man. Denzel Miller, who's one of the most talented, brilliant musicians I've ever played with. We had worked together in Mother Night as well, and he came on board towards the end of the band, but we became fast friends, and we also worked together with Jay Mason, and he recommended me to Lenny, and I went down and auditioned, and I got the position. Jamie Glazer, great guitarist. I think he had.
I know Jamie.
Yeah, and I think he had left to go work.
He's in Oregon too, I think.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. And it's a small world. And so I came in, and it was a heavy gig, man. It was like I was doing the funk rock thing, and Nona was more rock based, but this was kind of like a real fusion of sophisticated funk and really interesting ensemble riffs, and just the ensemble aspects of all the players playing these hellacious licks all in unison was a real thrill for me. Pardon my dogs, man. We've got a couple of dogs. They've got the Barney Fife syndrome, man.
No, it's all good.
They're real tiny, but they act like they're fucking great things, So yeah, I got the gig with Lenny. What a band! We had Don Blackman on keys, Denzel Miller, two of the most gifted people that I know. Then Nick Morrock on guitar, who's just a monster guitarist, and Barry Johnson on bass. It was really an incredible band. And then John Anderson, Skip Anderson, who would went on to work with Luther Vandross, helped us out on keys years later.
And then you played with Stanley after that, Stanley Clarke.
Yeah, that was like, wow. That was like when I was making the last album with Lenny, and there weren't really any touring prospects happening with Lenny, and Stanley called me up towards the end of the recording process, and he said, "What are you doing?" I says, "Well, just finishing up this record with Lenny," and he says, "Hey, you want to go to a Dodger game with me?" So
did you know him like that? Well,
I met him at some gigs. I'd met Stanley a long time. I met him back in the 70s when he was still with Chick, and he had his first solo album. He was just releasing his. So I've met a couple of great memories that I have of brilliant musicians and composers holding their test pressings, you know. And I recall meeting Stanley back around the 70s, the mid 70s, when he was with Chick and embarking on a solo career as well. But I'd known him, and he just reached out to me, and I says, well, yeah, sure, man. I've got tomorrow off. Went to the game, and we just started talking. He says, would you like to do a world tour with George and I? And I says, dude, yeah, it made a lot of sense for me. I really wanted to do things that were a bit more frontal in terms of the guitar aspects. And I felt that the direction with what we were doing with 29 was really kind of like, it was cool, it was sophisticated, but it was more kind of like in an Earth, Wind and Fire kind of deal in terms of the aspects of where the guitar is positioned in the music. And the stuff with Stanley was a bit more of the guitars like right in your face, and you're playing riffs together and you're soloing. It was a lot more, as I called it, full frontal guitar.
Yeah. Well, plus, but you had just being around those cats, I bet was great prepping for now.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, working with Lenny was a real discipline because, I mean, first of all, he had all these incredible musicians in the band, and had to keep these lunatic artists all kind of cohesive and on the same path to achieve a goal is really, and I've complimented him. I sent him a note a couple of years ago and thanking him. I says, I don't know how you did it, but thank you for harnessing this talent and developing and cultivating it. And sometimes people don't get the credit that they deserve for doing that yeoman's work. You know what I mean? That's like, it's like you got to be, you got to be a resident shrink. You need to, you have to be authoritarian. You need to kind of manage things. You need to work things. You need to be a diplomat. So I commended him.
That was really not really, really kind of you to do that.
Oh, I meant every word.
Yeah, it was really nice, man.
Yeah, thank you. And so then the thing with Stanley and George was just great. I mean, it was like Stanley and George just say, well, Eddie, the tune goes like this. Do your thing to it. And therein lies a whole other set of discipline. Not only that, but it's like, okay, the ball is in my court. I need to come up with something, that really kind of takes this and elevates it. So I'm contributing something that I feel is worthy. And some of it was structured, but really, I mean, they gave me a lot of freedom. And hearing those cats solo every night was just like, It was like a lesson. I mean, it was just like a lesson in how to build solos up, how to build tension and release and phrasing and 8-bar phrases, 4-bar phrases. And, as you're accelerating, it's incredible. It's, that's an education. You can't get that shit at Berkeley,
Eddie, was School Days out then?
Yeah, School Days was out.
So you were touring on that record?
We were touring on the Clarke Duke project, which had a pop hit called "Sweet Baby," but everything in the set was, we did songs off of that, but we did songs. We did like "Brazilian Love Affair" and some of George's really recognized pieces of music, as well as Stanley's earlier catalog. So it was a potpourri of each artist respectively, and the stuff that they had worked on collaboratively.
Funny, I interviewed I don't know if you know, a guitar player originally from Australia, lives in England now, Carl Orr.
No, don't know him.
Jazz cat. Carl toured with Lenny White and George Duke.
Wow.
Yeah, because they did a project. This is like in the last 15 years, I think, or something like that. But it's interesting. And then you deal with Stanley and George. Yeah,
the last time I saw George before he passed was at a concert. He came through town, through Portland, Oregon, with Marcus Miller.
Oh, wow.
And the whole theme was really kind of like their work that they had done with Miles Davis. So they were doing Tutu and other pieces they had worked on together. It was really a great show. That's the last time I saw Big Daddy. That was his nickname.
Big
amongst people
Daddy.
that knew. Yeah.
That's cool. Man,
Yeah.
talk about your work with Robert Palmer. You did some ground, I mean, from um a star, charting standpoint, you did some incredible stuff there with him.
It was, I tell people when I worked with Robert was when I really hit my stride in terms of people knowing me for a particular sound and or sounds. Because I mean, I was doing the funk stuff with Robert, and I was doing the big, really big guitar. And sometimes some people think that those things are kind of like two discrete worlds, that don't kind of come together. But but they're, but it can if you approach it right and you approach it authentically. And so, as much as I was listening to the funk stuff, I was listening to Townsend and listening to Clapton and Beck and Hendrix, and to me, that's my core as far as how I learned how to play the rock stuff is listening to them.
The funk stuff you did on, for example, that song "I Didn't Mean to Turn You On," which is
Mhm.
just love that. It's such a great vibe. The that was, I mean, it's such a great vibe you put out on there, man. That record is just, I love
Oh,
it.
thanks. It was a lot of fun to play. Actually, the way that tune came about was it was the initial tempo, because that track was cut live, and the initial speed of the tempo was considerably lower than what ultimately became the record. But
Interesting.
we increased the speed, and then we built the overdubs on it. Until we felt the pocket was right. We liked the performance, but we sped it up. And man, that was like a DI Strat with EMG pickups and a Tokai exciter, which was an exciter pedal that Tokai made back in the day.
What's
And
exciter? What is an exciter pedal?
it's like an oral exciter. It kind of like enhances kind of like certain frequencies in the upper register. So it really puts a lot of air, it takes a lot of bottom out of the guitar. And it just really kind of highlights in a way that it creates a shininess to the guitar without it being strident, and it sits in the track in a better way. That's the only way I could really equate it to.
No,
It's
thank you. I didn't know that was.
yeah,
That
and
that it's such it's just a funky tune, man. That's such a
it's really I'm proud of that track. And see, those are the kind of things that it's like being a studio musician is like you have to be a chameleon in a lot of ways, and in respect to that track, it's like sometimes there's so much fun that I have from playing in something that isn't frontal and isn't the main focus, because there are things that you're playing, especially when you're working with vocalists and singers, you need to find that kind of thing that enhances the piece of music or serving the song and serving the music that creates inspiration for whoever's singing, because most of the tracks that I've played on have been with vocalists. So you want to create that environment that they feel inspired and the producer feels a connection or an inspiration from, and there's a challenge for, internally, because it's not something that isn't necessarily heard by the average person that's listening, but sometimes those little things that you're playing in the back are instrumental in a track swing or feeling right, and it's not necessarily heard, but it's felt.
yeah. It is. Who's doing bass on it? Because the bass line in that song is just tremendous.
Oh, that Bernard played Bernard bass. Bernard Edwards played bass on that.
Funk. That is. That's moving the whole thing, man.
Oh, Bernard was he was a great bass player, and it came from a place of feel. And certain great players, irrespective of the instrument that they're playing, there's a feel that they have. It's almost as if the value that they give to quarter notes or dotted eighths or eighth notes, it just feels different. And they're playing it, and they're playing it accurately. It just feels different, and it feels better. And therein lies style relative to personality with music. And that's the only way that I can equate it, because, I mean, he just had a big note, he had big ears, and he had a pocket that was really deep.
Who was Robert like to work with?
Robert was the absolute best to work with. He knew his music. He would come in with songs that were they were kind of sketched out, in a demo form sometimes not. But the most important thing about it was that Robert was all about rhythm. And he understood all different types of rhythm, and he really understood the South American, South African rather, as well as South American. He was big on Jobim and bossa nova and all that, as well as South African Juju high life. So he's very familiar with rhythms, and in terms of cascading rhythms, multiple polyrhythms on top of one another. He was really big on that. So, but the beauty of it was he let you be you, and I know he let me be me, because I felt it was the first time that I was really able to collaborate with an artist, that it was a true collaboration, and he was open to hear what I had. And man, the more I pushed the envelope, the more he dug it. The more I took it out, the more he dug it. And it was really a great relationship.
It's interesting. I don't think people realize that was his 8th record. I think people, he became famous with these hits. That's a lot of music before you get the kind of fame he got from those, the record.
I think, in those days, he was selling enough records to merit the record label saying, "Oh, go ahead, another." Those days are gone, I mean, so they were able to cultivate, and look what happens. He was selling, maybe a few 100,000 of his previous records, and then all of a sudden he's selling 3 or 4 million copies of Riptide, which made people therefore go and seek his other catalogs, and then everything kind of blossoms.
Yeah.
And that made me really happy, because I played on some number ones and stuff like that prior to Robert's, but that was the one that I think meant the most to me. I know it meant the most to me.
Because of the collaboration that you had, the working relationship you had with him. Yeah,
I mean, to me, when Addicted came out, nothing sounded like that. Nothing sounded like that on the radio, because there was something that was, and when I do hear it on the radio now, there's something it still holds up. And I think the way it was recorded, the way Jason Corsaro recorded everything was really incredible. It was groundbreaking, and E.T. Thornton did a great mix on it as well. And it just really stood out. The record was the first entire digital project that I ever worked on, and they flew a Sony 24-track machine down to the Bahamas to record.
He recorded down in the Bahamas, so I thought.
Yeah, that first album, the Riptide album was done at Compass Point.
I might have asked you this. Do you know Cliff Goodwin?
Cliff Goodwin.
He's a guitar player from like Worcester, Mass. Because he actually was flown down to do like touch up on that record.
On which record?
On Riptide. That's the name of the record. Was Riptide, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's what.
I don't know if
maybe it wasn't. I know he went down to the Bahamas, and I thought it was that record anyway. Maybe not.
I don't know Cliff. I don't have any recollection of seeing him. I know Andy Taylor played a little bit on Addicted, and we had Guy Pratt play bass.
Oh, I had him on my show. He's quite a character.
Indeed. I haven't seen him in many years, but he's a great cat, man.
He's playing with Gilmore now.
Yeah. I've seen him on the Live from Gdansk. Oh, that's such a great
record. Yeah, he's actually been Pink Floyd's bassist once. I think Tony Levin did the first one, and then after that it was been Guy.
Yeah, I saw Floyd. I think it was 1988 at the that huge outdoor arena in LA. Is it the Coliseum or something like that?
They're asking the wrong guy about LA. I know.
Yeah. Oh man, incredible show. It was outdoors. I mean, there had been 50, 60,000 people there, and Guy was playing bass with them in those days as well. We hung out after the show, and
that's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Big Gilmore fan.
So did getting the exposure of being on that record, did that lead you to other opportunities?
Man, it's like there was something that was kind of almost like the Big Bang Theory happened right around that time, because I'd worked with Jagger and Palmer and Winwood and Roth all around the same time. I think maybe Jagger was before Palmer, but both those things had come into the whole stew of what was going on with rock around that time, and it was just like a big bang. It was playing on Winwood's record. That was a huge record as well.
Oh yeah,
And
back in
then
the Highlands.
yeah, and then Crazy from the Heat. I mean, that thing kind of blew up as well, which was
How
it
did
was
you get that gig, Crazy from the Heat? And you got to have some funny David Lee Roth stories.
well, it's like actually Ted Templeman's office called me and asked me if I'd be available, and I think that came upon a recommendation. I think Tony Thompson had told Ted that you should give Eddie Martinez a call.
That's so cool because you had hooked him up with not that's why he did it, but it's so cool to see that kind of like reciprocity, like, hey, my brother,
Yeah, man.
might have been a while back, but I don't,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we cut those tracks, and that was so sweet of Tony. But we cut that in Studio A at Power Station, and Roth was just he was an absolute gentleman, man. He was so cool. I mean, we had check out the band. We had John Robinson on drums, JR. We had Willie Weeks on bass, Edgar Winter on keys and sax, a guy named Brian Mann on additional keys, Sid McGuinness, and myself on guitar.
Wow.
And we cut those tracks. It was minimum overdubs on those tracks, man. It's like, I think I overdubbed 2 bars out of the 3 songs or 4 songs that I played on that EP.
That's amazing. That was his first. That was his like breakthrough. That was his first EP, wasn't it? His first release, solo.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of talk about it, and the whole speculation of whether the Van Halen's over and this and that, And we also had Sammy Figueroa on percussion on those records, and that was a funny cat, man, because Sammy does a great Sammy Davis Jr. impersonation. So all of a sudden, we're hearing like ka-chong, chong, that kind of shit. It's like Sammy walked into the room, man. It's like, oh, we were fucking dying, man. David was cool, man. He came out to the room when we were just, setting up, and he spoke to us, and he says, I just want you. He really was a sincere thank you to everybody in the room to be a part of this recording.
That's really cool.
That was really cool. And nice cat. My experiences weren't what the stereotypical impressions of what most people are out of him. It was musical, it was pragmatic, it was kind, and it was fun.
No midgets.
No.
I have never heard anything negative about him, but I've interviewed a bunch of cats, and they've all had like rock and roll stories about,
I'm sure that's some, man, but this experience, I guess, maybe was a real serious thing for him, his first solo record.
And it did great.
It blew up. It really blew up.
When something like this, you're like such a mellow dude, and I know that you've never like suffered from ego issues, but when something like that happens and you're a part of it, and you're a critical part of it, especially on like the Roth record, you go home at night. What are you thinking, or were you thinking nothing?
Well, it's really interesting. Being a studio musician for most of my adult life, it's kind of like you focus and you work so intensely on the music when you're in the studio, and then after the track is cut, it's kind of like, okay, delete, and you just need to.
You mean like emotionally or mentally delete, like onto the next thing?
Onto the next thing,
Right.
So, there were days that it says, oh man, that was really fun. But it's not anything that I would dwell on. And more importantly, it wasn't dwelling on the historical aspects of it. It's just not my kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was so passionate about the love of playing guitar, and grateful for the ability to be able to play on these records and to deliver the goods and be prepared for it, because there's a whole big thing with being a musician, and it's being prepared. It's kind of hard finding cats that are kind of willing to do the work nowadays. I don't know. I can't put it into anything else as far as, if you do your work and you're diligent about what you want, and you're really pursuing what you want to do. The most important thing is when you do get that call, because you will get that call, is to be prepared. And it's really an important thing. For me, I was grateful that I was able to thrive in those situations, and I think it's almost as if you attract these things. You know, when you have a real enthusiasm, and it's like I wasn't, I wasn't I wasn't ensconced with the thought of, oh my goodness, I'm sitting here and Mick Jagger's playing a song to us in the studio, or Robert Palmer's explaining something to us. Uh, all it was about was playing, and playing something that really elevated the song and something that helped the music overall. To me, that was my mission. That was
Right.
my, and when you have an aspect of preparation, and you're really kind of inspired, and you have a real positive approach to really finding a common place where everybody's happy. That's that kind of alchemy is special.
What? Thank you. And I totally understand what you're saying. And not in any way comparing this little show to the massive things you've done, but sometimes my wife would say, if I have somebody that I follow, they were like a musical hero of mine, are you nervous? I'm like, no, because it's not about, I just want to do my job. I just want
Exactly.
to make sure I present well, and that I'm, respectful, and like, that person senses my genuine interest in them. So I again, not in all comparing what you've done to this show, but I understand the mindset, because it's not about anything other than I got to do good work here. That's the only thing I'm freaking thinking of, to be honest with you. And hopefully we'll hit it off, and I can't control that, and to some
Yeah,
extent.
yeah, exactly. It's an interesting thing, man. It's just like it's like when I think about, it's like when I was preparing for this thing and I sent you my discography, my selected discography and stuff from allmusic.com. It's like
That is so
when I'm looking
awesome.
at this stuff, it's like kind of like it's like I, I wasn't thinking about that in the moment. I wasn't thinking about that.
Right,
The journey's where the beauty is. The,
right.
the experience is where the beauty is. That's the way I can explain it, and the fact that now Rogers lived around the corner from me, and Bernard Edwards lived literally one block away from me. I didn't know that he lived up a block from me on Anthony Avenue in the Bronx.
That's so funny.
I used to hear a bass walking up the street. I said, man, I wonder where that bass is coming from. And then years later, when they had Chic, now told me, Bernard lived up on 1818 Anthony Avenue.
That
You
is
know,
so funny, man.
it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. You know,
What
uh,
what guitar did you play on the Roth record? You playing your Strat?
no, no. Actually, Sid McGuinness was playing a Strat. I was playing a Hamer, a prototype that
You
was
had a
like,
deal with them back then, didn't you?
yeah, back in the 80s. Joe Danzig, who's a dear friend. I'm trying to figure out how we met.
He's not related to like Glenn Danzig or anything, is he?
No, not to my knowledge. He's just an incredible guitar builder, luthier from the Midwest, from Chicago. Now he's on the East Coast. And but Hamer guitars, there was a buzz about them. They were like making really killer guitars in the Gibson flavor. And I played this prototype, it was called. That was the model. And it was a single triple coil pickup at the bridge. It was really just a single coil and a humbucker kind of married together. And that was my hit maker, man. I used that on California Girls, Addicted to Love, the Run DMC hits, just a bunch of tracks, man. And that guitar just had no matter how nasty, the sound was, there was a clarity that came through with that guitar that made it really kind of malleable.
Do you still
Um,
have that?
yeah, I still have it.
That is so cool. I'm really happy you still have that. That is awesome, man. That's very nice.
Yeah, man, that's my hit maker.
Dude, well, if I come to Oregon, I'm going to ask you to bust that guitar out and do some of the stuff from David Lee Roth, just to see the magic in action, man. That would be very cool to watch
You
that.
bet. You bet.
Um, how did you prepare for those Roth records? I mean, so I'm assuming he gave you, charts or something similar to that, or?
No, it was just that we just went into the session, and there was some paper there, and we just played.
So you had that record that you did there was no like that was all off the cuff, literally like a spontaneous.
Yeah, that was all. We didn't have any pre-production. I didn't know what song there was going to be.
Holy shit, man!
And that
That's
was the way it was.
fucking amazing.
It was
Eddie,
fun.
you got, dude, I need the fairy dust for you to sprinkle that, man. That is incredible.
Oh, it was fun.
Wow.
It was fun, man. It's just like, man, the focus and the intensity of when you're doing things like that. I can't even explain it. It's just, but it's fun. And coming up with parts, it's like you have to do what I've done and what some of the other cats have done in terms of the studio world. You need to hear shit. You need to be able to hear a song and hear something, because in those days they wanted what you had to offer. So you listen to a track, and the most important thing is that you hear stuff, or you hear parts, or you hear things to accompany it in a way that kind of makes it better, or makes the track swing. It's like sometimes you can hear a track and you can figure out, well, gee, I think I could make it swing a little bit better if I did something locking in with the sock cymbal or something like that, or it could be something entirely different, depending on what application you're applying to the music.
That is
So
incredible, man. I'm just like really blown away. I like, there was some very intricate stuff you were doing on there.
no, it was actually, I played on California Girls, Just a Gigolo, and then what was that 12/8 kind of blues? Easy
Uh,
Street, I think it was called. Yeah, those were the tunes.
that's just incredible, man. Talk about the work you did with Run DMC. How did that? I think you said Bernard. So who got you that gig? You mentioned.
Oh,
I
yes.
apologize.
Well, Larry Smith called me up, and Larry and I were just really good friends. And we played in a lot of different bands, and there came a point when it's like I remember when I was playing with Carmine, and then we kind of like after our tenure with Nona, Carmine split to do work with Nectar, and then eventually with Bowie, and I took my own lane. And when I worked with Larry, I stayed on my lane, and Larry made a bit of a detour. He went more towards what was going on in the street in terms of what was going on with beats
Mm.
and rap, the rap scene that was just burgeoning, and the whole breakdance scene that was coming out of the South Bronx and the whole deal. So he that was his detour. And then a few years later, he's producing Houdini, and he's getting a name for himself. And I met Russell Simmons through a Curtis Blow record that we had worked on, and then I get a
Curtis
call
Blow.
from Larry. Larry says, "Yo, Eddie, I want you to put your shit on this track, man. I need some of that rock shit,
I need some of that rock shit. But do you remember that was kind of an interesting time in New York, because especially when the breakdancing thing first came out, because like out of nowhere, like every block there was this massive cardboard box unfolded and people were breakdancing. And it was like,
Oh yeah,
it was like acrobatics. And like if you like, especially you go to like, like on 59th Street over there by the front of Central Park, or in Times Square, or up on Fordham Road, there was like major productions going, and these guys were like tearing it up. It was really wild.
Yeah, that was man. It was, and when I think about my roots musically, it's kind of like the first spark for me was the Beatles. I mean, the Beatles kind of like that was it. In our house, it was a lot of music. So we had the Latin music, we had the Tito Rodriguez, Eddie Palmieri, Johnny Pacheco, all the greats, Joe Cuba. I mean, just all the Tito Puente. The great golden era, as I consider, of Latin music.
And a lot of that stuff was coming from Spanish Harlem.
Yeah, and it was exactly. Yeah. And it was before it was Latin music was called a food group. I don't look at salsa as I call it Latin music.
Right.
Salsa. Salsa's
right.
a for crying out loud. You know what I mean? It's like, and to me, that was the golden era because, I mean, the music still holds up. I listen to it today and it just blows my mind. It's so beautiful. It's so musical. And the Latin musicians are just masters. So we had that. And my older brother.
So let me ask you a question. Someone turned me on to this record recently, and I checked it out. It was amazing. Airto Moreira Fingers. Have you ever heard that?
Well, I've never heard it, but Airto's a master percussionist. I saw Airto play with Miles Davis.
Oh my God. I'd never heard anything like this. It was so cool.
Wow, that's cool.
Fingers.
So in our house we had, I was listening to the Beatles, man. So I was like stoned into the Fab Four, and zoned in on that. But my brother was listening to, Sketches of Spain.
At a young age?
My brother was like around, let's see, I'd say he's probably in his early 20s, maybe.
Okay.
What's that? We listened to Sun Ra, Bob Dylan, Miles Davis, James Brown. We had the Latin music, and I was listening to the rock stuff, the Beatles. And then my cousin comes over on a New Year's Eve. It had to be maybe 1967 or 68. And he had 3 albums with him. Hendrix, Are You Experienced? Disraeli Gears, and Procol Harum, Whiter Shade of Pale. That totally fucked me up.
He had 3 albums and a 1/4 ounce of weed, and you guys were done for a week.
Well before the weed, man. I was just like, holy cow, man. I wasn't doing the weed, man, but there was, this was at a family party, man. So, I mean, they're playing Latin music, and then we took a little break, and he puts on this psychedelic shit.
How did that go down? With the older folks? Yeah, probably not so well.
Not too well. We were playing my uncle, my uncle that played, that Sergeant Pepper's. It was, is it,
Day in the Life?
What's the name of that freaking tune? It's getting better all the time. And so my uncle's saying, that guy's just playing one note there, ka-chink, and it's really a tone. It's like he's playing like a G9 chord with like a G chord with an A, at the top, it's on the top strings, and it's just one note there. It's just, oh no, but you got to listen deeper, Uncle. So
that's funny, man.
It's funny. It's hilarious. But yeah, lots of music, and then once I heard Jimmy, it kind of changed a lot of stuff for me, and then hearing Eric Clapton. And then eventually, Jeff Beck, and man, I saw Jeff Beck in Central Park. The first concert was Hendrix.
Was that like the Dr. Pepper thing?
Actually, it was Schaefer.
Okay.
Schaefer was the sponsor, and I saw Led Zeppelin there. I saw the first Jeff Beck group there. Holy cow, man! Rod Stewart was singing. Woody was on bass. Jeff was playing a burst. Nicky Hopkins and Mickey Waller, I think it was. And
wow.
Oh man, that shit was killing. And Hendrix at the Singer Bowl, which I think that concert you can find it on YouTube. And that was the first time I'd seen Hendrix.
The Singer Bowl, where is it? Was that out
in Flushing?
Oh, okay.
Not too far from the Hemisphere kind of deal.
The World's Fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was my first concert, man.
That's amazing.
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible. Seeing Hendrix come out because, Chambers Brothers kicked ass.
They opened for him?
Yeah, they opened. Actually, Soft Machine, the Chambers Brothers, Janis Joplin with Big Brother.
You're fucking kidding me. And it was probably $3 for the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it was like $1.380, as we say back in the day.
Yeah. I haven't heard that in a while. That's
it was crazy. It was crazy. And the Soft Machine was killing. And then the Chambers Brothers destroyed. And Janis came out and was like, the whole stereotypes, man. She had a bottle of Southern Comfort when she hit the stage, man. It was like deep. And then I says, holy cow, man, these freaking groups just freaking, they just.
She was I don't care what people say about her. I'm a huge fan of hers. I think her voice was incredible. She was just amazingly soulful. And, that's it, period. She's a wonderful, wonderful musician.
Oh, man, she came, it was really great. And I'm saying, holy cow, man, I mean, what the fuck is Hendrix gonna do? So he comes out and he's got some bandana hanging off of the neck of his Strat. It was kind of like a sonic blue kind of deal, Stratocaster, and he had 3 stacks, and it was a rotating stage. And he opens up with "Are You Experienced?" And it was like, oh man, the top of my head just kind of like opened up, and like, freaking, gray matter just started flying out. It was like unbelievable. It was a mind blower. And I tell people he played Red House, and I turned blue. It was really it was awe-inspiring.
How many times did you see him?
I saw him 3 times. I saw him at Singer Bowl. I saw him at the Garden after he was busted in Toronto. Mm-hmm. And then I saw him at Randall's Island, which was the last time I saw him. And that was with Mitch and Billy Cox was on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have a bootleg of that show. Or it may not even be a bootleg, because I know it's out there. So, okay. But I know I have it, yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. Niall and I, we worked on the stage crew at the Randall's Island Festivities, because we figured, man, he had an in of the people who were kind of organizing the whole thing. So we were able to work on the stage crew, helping people with flight cases and stuff and moving things around. So
that's really cool. That's a great place to see a show.
Oh my goodness, man! We're right behind Grand Funk's rig while they're playing and stuff. They're playing these huge Fillmore West amps, man, which are like, oh man, it was crazy. And then Hendrix comes on, and then they had to clear the stage for Hendrix, But I managed to be able to stay close enough to the stage to see him really up close, and that was he was incandescent. There's something great. Glowed about Hendrix when he hit the stage. Very, very special.
And man, just talk about one more, Lou Reed, because I think he's, as an artist, what the breadth of his work was just so tremendous. And forget about the hits. I mean, he was a deep, he could obviously very torn and conflicted, but what a deep cat with incredible talent.
Oh man, he's a poet, and an incredible artist. I worked with him. We did that. I think Studio C at Power Station that was. And J.T. Lewis is a great drummer and dear friend to this day. And Fernando Saunders, bassist on there.
I wound up connecting with him. He's coming on the show. So.
Yeah, he's a great cat, man. Great man. Fernando's a badass, And I put some kind of Shang-a-Lang kind of funky stuff on this tune. I think it's called The Original Rapper or something like that, I think. Off that album, Mistrial, I think it's called. And it was great. Lou was a really wonderful cat, man. I liked him very, very much. And he had this childlike quality when it came to guitars. He was so passionate about gear. And he loved gears, and he loved amplifiers and guitars. And he showed me his latest guitars that he had. And he was just like, it was really cool. And last time I saw him was when I was doing a stint on the Letterman show. He performed one evening, and it was great to see him again. That's the last time I saw him. But it was good to see him.
I was really happy later in his career with the New York record that he really got some, not success. That record was really successful on the charts. I was really happy because he didn't really. It was still Lou Reed. It wasn't like he had to go pop.
Right.
He
compromises. He just did what he did, and it happened.
Yeah. What a great record that was. I've listened to that many, many times, man.
That's cool.
What's Eddie Martinez Productions?
Well, it's just just basically the productions that I did. There was a while that I was producing a lot of records for Latin America, Mexico, Argentina, and did several productions with them, which is really cool. It's like, the artists would come and channel like the executive producer, more or less, the
funder. The funder. Yeah.
And, they'd send me all the tunes, and I'd arrange everything, and I'd hire the players. And we'd go in there and like old school, man, just 24-track analog, none of this, 48-track stuff. We just did it old school. You make your commitments earlier on in the recording game. It was so much fun. I had Steve Ferroni come in and play on some stuff. Pino Palladino would come in and play on some tracks.
Wow.
Kenny Aronson played on some things. Wayne Pedswater and Seth Glassman, all these great New York studio musicians, would come in and play on it, man. It's like, it was great, man.
That's so
So
cool,
much fun to do. Cut 3-4 tracks a day. You make an album in like a couple of days, bing, bang, boom. And it's so much fun.
That's awesome, man. What would you say, if it's possible, like knee-jerk reaction, top 3 music experiences you've had for any reason at all?
Okay, I'd have to say, top 3 with Live Aid with Jagger and Tina Turner would have to be right there up at the top. That was an incredible experience. Really, really amazing. And what was really interesting was the sound check the night before. We had a sound check at around dusk the night before Live Aid. And Mick had called me up and asked me to supplement the Hall & Oates band. I think it was me and Bashiri Johnson, percussionist. Then we had Eddie Kendricks and David Ruffin from the Temptations.
From the Temptations, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they sang backup.
What were those guys like? What was those guys? I mean, talk about musical history.
Very cool. They seemed very cool.
Yeah.
It was just really, everything was just so, it was so easy and was so professional. And, GE's an old buddy of mine, and G. Smith was playing guitar as well. And Mick had asked me to supplement the whole deal because I'd worked on a lot of the record and worked with just about every rhythm section that was used on his first solo album. And it was a great experience. And so the night before, man, it's like dusk, and we did a run through, and I was like, oh shit, this is so effing dope. It was the energy. In an empty stadium, just the crew. And we threw down, and I said, this is going to be some experience. So that the following day, it was like that times 10 because we had like 85,000 people in there. And it was as if the energy they were putting out was almost matching the sound that we were putting off stage.
Was that the Meadowlands? Where was that?
No, that was I think JFK Stadium.
JFK, yeah.
Okay. And that's my memory, and it's a great memory. And I remember hanging out backstage with Neil Young and stuff, and that was really, I'm such a Neil Young fan, and he's a guitar player, man. So he's asking questions, he's to GE and myself about guitars and this and that. It's a great memory.
That's so cool, man. That's a really good thing, man. What would be number 2?
Let's see. Number 2, I think, would be my entire experience with Robert Palmer. And I remember there were some really, really special gigs. And I remember playing Wembley with Robert. And that was really a special moment.
He was English, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's from Yorkshire. He grew up on the island of Malta, I think, as a kid. But it was British, but Robert had like a love-hate thing with the press. The British press weren't particularly fond of Robert while he was around. I don't know what the perception of him now after he's passed, but it was a touch and go kind of thing. And it was a huge success. So, that, and as well as the experience of making some really kind of cool records like Addicted and Simply Irresistible. And the solo on Simply Irresistible is something like I really felt like I got away with murder.
Why is that?
Well, because, it was a huge pop hit, and the guitar solo was something kind of like totally incongruous to what a big hit record would have as a guitar solo. Because, it's like, when I think about that guitar solo, it's really a composite of 3 things. It's like 3 inspirations. The first inspiration was Joe Diorio had this book called Intervallic Designs, right?
I've heard a lot of players cite that book, to be honest.
Yeah, or probably Jen Batten.
Jennifer Batten is exactly. How did you know?
She's a buddy of mine. She's from here.
She's in Portland, right?
Yeah, she's in Sandy, not too far, just down the road a bit.
Yeah, she is the first person to mention that.
Yeah. So it opens up with a Joe Diorio inspired kind of riff, and then the middle section is kind of like a bop riff, but really played with a high gain sound, you know what I mean? And then I ended out with kind of like a weird kind of whole tone thing that's descending. And it was something that, you know, and Robert called it Large Marge, you know, from the Pee Wee Herman movie, you know, the truck driver, female truck driver that just turns into this grotesque monster, you know, and he called it Large Marge. And I was really happy about that I was able to get away with it.
Man,
so that's a great memory and something that
all part of what made that song a hit.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, relearning it was kind of deep, because, you know, it's like sometimes when I record, I like the tape to be my canvas.
Sure.
You know, like Addicted was first take solo, but Simply Irresistible was more like a composite, you know, and I was really pushing the envelope, and I was just doing things that were really kind of like off the beaten path for me, you know, and to come up with that was cool. And, you know, so revisiting it and learning it, you know, it's really interesting learning shit that you played, you know, that just came off the top. And sometimes that's how I approach solos. I don't know what I'm going to play. It just kind of like, okay, that, you know, boom, I'm just going to go for something. I like standing on the precipice and jumping over, and I know I may crash. I may come into something that's a divine mistake. You know what I mean?
A divine mistake. I like that. What would be number 3?
I think number 3 would be, making the album that I did with Bernard Edwards, Tony Thompson, Jeff Bova, and Robert Hart.
Your record.
Yeah, we had an album called Distance back around 1989. And that was really, I thought it was a really strong debut album for its time. And I think the songs are really strong. And that, in terms of a personal accomplishment, was something that was mine and not doing something for someone else.
Is that record still out there now? Is that like, can I find that on iTunes?
Yes, yeah. It's called Under the One Sky, you know. And then an honorable mention would have to be my work with Ryuichi Sakamoto. I can't discount that. That was really one of the highlights of my career, is working with one of the preeminent composers and artists of our time. I mean, I urge people to check out Ryuichi Sakamoto. You know, you've heard his work on, you know, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, The Last Emperor, which he won an Academy Award for. Those things are just, and touring with him, it was a splendid, just a wonderful experience. And I wish him well. I haven't seen him in a long time, and wherever you are, Ru, hope you're well.
You know, I like when you said honorable mention goes to everybody's. Just says, let me get a 4th one in there. you're like the diplomat, Eddie. I'd like to give honorable mention to. That was very cool, very cute, actually. Let me ask you this. You just said, I like standing. Hang on, I'm just writing Sakamoto down because I want to check that out. I like standing on the precipice, you know, and seeing what happens. Are you like that outside of music, like in your personal life?
Not anymore. Where's the rim shot when you need it, damn it? Shit,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah. But no. Generally, and as a rule, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so. I know the answer to some of these questions I'm going to ask you, so it's unfair. I didn't think so.
But,
yeah.
you know, I think to a certain extent, there is, you know, sometimes there could be these streaks of self-destructiveness that come through, especially when you're younger, you know, and reckless abandon to a degree. But generally, no. No, I don't like standing on the precipice in terms of aspects of my life and things like that. You know, obviously I'm human and I've made mistakes and everything, but
Sure.
But as a rule of thumb, no, that's not something that's part of my vibe generally.
Did you stand on the precipice with Akosua?
Yeah, I believe that I did.
Yeah. I think you did too, man. That's what I'm hearing when I said, and I apologize, I did not mean to cut you off. When I said to you earlier, though, that everything I'm listening to, it sounds like every song, it's like I'm fucking going. This is it, man. Like if this is the last thing I play, I'm gonna make sure I'm good with it.
Thanks. That means a lot to me. Um,
Well, that's what I'm hearing, man. I'm not bullshitting you.
yeah, I saw this documentary on John Mellencamp on I forget what it was, and he said something that just really rang out to me. It was like boom, like a bell rang off or a clarion call. It says, when you surprise yourself, you're onto something. You're onto some good shit. And
Ah, that's
and to
good,
me,
man.
I thought that was so profound because um, my record had already been completed by that time, and I was able to relate to him. I think if I hadn't had made my record, um, I wouldn't have been able to relate to it. But listening to my record, I feel that I surprised myself in a couple of because being a guitarist, you have your internal vocabulary and stuff, and and to me as a guitarist, nothing makes me happier than playing something that, oh shit, I don't think I've ever played that before.
Hmm.
That's a great feeling. And there were a couple of instances in terms of maybe a solo, or there was with the title track. It only had the title track only maybe 70% complete. And with Tal Bergman and Carmine Rojas, man, we're knocking out these tracks, right? So Carmine says, "Yeah, what else you got?" I says, "Oh shit, man, did we do that many tracks already?" So I says, "Oh, look, I got this one here. Give me 20 minutes, take a break." And so I just got down. I had 70% of the song composed, and I wrote this additional section, and then we cut that track, and I was so happy because I love the way there's a modulation in the track, and it's a very cool modulation, and in terms of the way that the part kind of gelled, and it came out really well. I was really happy with that. So those things that surprise you are like my solo on Rogue Chimps, which is really a lot of fun to play, or the solo, on Majestic, which
Great
was
song.
it was thank you, and it was a lot of fun to play. That was a '61 SG Les Paul on that one, and my Briggs on Majestic for the first solo.
I want to talk about your record, Akosua. Um, a bunch of questions. For starters, your voice, man, like it's really funny because I know you now personally, and then when I listen to the record, I can't. It's like it sounds like two different guys, but you know what I'm saying. It's just really weird to connect your singing voice to you. But man, your voice is amazing. Like, were you trained singing or?
Well, I did take some vocal lessons when I was making my first album with Bernard many years ago, and it was the guy's name is Marty Lawrence. He was a great teacher. He was up on the Upper West Side, and I learned so much from him in terms of covering my sounds and just learning what to do to like protect your voice and how to get the most out of it, so you can sing under any kind of conditions and things like that. And he coached a lot of professional singers. So I did take I'd say probably, I don't know, maybe a dozen or so lessons from him, and he was really helpful because I've always been kind of like a full tenor, and I have a high voice. So I can have a high full voice too. And
Yeah, you're not singing any falsetto on there. That's what that's hard.
yeah, no, yeah, I'm hitting a lot of things in my full voice, which was part of my intention, And I've always loved singing. And the first band that I was in, I was a singer. It was, before I really played guitar well, and I love that. And it really came in handy as a musician working with Robert, live. We were doing a lot of vocals. There was
Did a lot of background vocals.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and his stuff wasn't really easy to sing either. I mean, the harmonies were really complex and closer. You know what I mean? It's sixths and fourths and things like that. So clusters.
And it's always funny watching those videos because it's clear that the women are not singing and not playing, but nobody gives a shit because they're all so attractive. It's
Yeah.
quite, I don't know who thought of that, but that was brilliant. That
Oh,
whole,
brilliant. The director was Terrence Donovan, I think his name was. He did those three
dude, your
videos.
memory, your memory is really incredible.
Oh man, I'm kind of like I remember all that shit. I remember talking to Robert about him. He was a fashion director, a fashion. He was a photographer ostensibly. He's like that was his deal, was fashion.
You
And
could. I'm not surprised.
well, yeah, you got the haute couture babes, with the
Yeah.
the pancake on and stuff, and the black dresses and the sashaying as they're playing the instruments. Like, man, it's like such a cool theme. And I mean, to go 3 videos deep in with
Yeah.
generally the same concept, man, that thing had legs. No pun intended. Shit.
No, but even the little subtleties, like the details of, he picked white guitars with the same, like those, there's little, so, and like when you watch it, it looks like a fashion shoot. It looks like somebody that's like an artist,
Exactly.
it's not like a rock video. It's like yeah. So I'm really not surprised. That's, interesting that you said that actually.
Yeah, I remember Robert telling me that Terrence was a bit of an eccentric too. So it's like it was perfect. It was just
Yeah, right. That's what you'd expect out of somebody
oh,
creating that kind of stuff,
of course,
especially
of
like,
course.
I don't know, where was this made? Were they over in Europe or was it in New
I
York
believe
or?
it was in London.
Oh, in London. Yeah.
But man, the look for its time too. I mean, just overall, the overall production value was really kind of cool for its day.
Oh yeah. Very over the top for, um, so what prompted you to do a record after all these years?
I mean, I just had oh man, just the basic evolution of time and space, and just really wanting to put down some things that I've written that kind of represent kind of like what I've been known for and kind of like where I'm going musically. So, more. I think there are 4 instrumentals on the record, and that's a departure. That's a new thing for me, and it's a whole different way of thinking as the guitar is the voice, so to speak, and it was really fun. It was really a lot of fun to do. So it was kind of liberating in some ways, and so we'll see what happens on the next one. You know.
What was the biggest challenge or the biggest fears that you had to overcome in doing this project, if you had any?
Um, there's always for me as an artist, and I remember when I made my first solo album. When it's your solo, when you're part of a collective, there's a different energy. There's an energy of camaraderie and things like that. But when you're making a solo record, from my perspective, there's you just really want to do good shit. You want to put some things down that you feel really good and proud about, and just going, oh man, did I do my best? And I gave my all on this. And yeah, obviously there are things that I think that maybe I could have done a little bit better. And I didn't have the budgets that you had back in the 80s or the 90s, for that matter.
Sure.
But it was just really kind of combing through internally whether um, this is really representative of where I am right now.
You think it was?
I believe so. I
Right.
believe so, and I'm really happy with the record, with the way it came out. Um, I think that the participants did a great job. I mean, the
Oh.
musicians, just did a great job, and the mix by Tony Phillips and mastering by Harry Weinberg, just stellar.
The mastering is just phenomenal. I mean, the mixing and the mastering are just,
Yeah, it
it's
was
first
crazy.
class.
Yeah, and then we had the musicians with Carmine Tal Bergman, Ramsey Embick, John Mazzacco, Patrick Lamb, Jose Rossi, Carmine Rojas, and Tal Bergman, if I didn't say it already. But uh, just tremendous, and it was real. It was so much fun, and it's to me, it's got to be fun.
Right.
I don't want to be doing shit that's like fucking stressful and you pulling hair out of your head, because
Especially your own project.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially your own thing, and you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole. Come on,
Yeah.
life's too short. It's got to be joyous. There's got to be joy. There's got to be fun. There's got to be laughter. I mean, I'm big on that. You got to have the yucks when you're making some music. You know?
Most surprising lessons or gifts that you got out of that experience of putting the record together?
Um, uh, I think it's almost a reaffirmation. It's a reaffirmation of how powerful music is, Because when I first started recording the record, um, it was so much fun. And then my mom passed. And then I kind of put the brakes on recording. I didn't go into the studio for a while. And the thing that I learned is how healing and cathartic music is. It kind of reaffirmed that for me, Craig.
When you went back, you
I went back in
better.
when I was ready. I went back in with a vengeance to like really just kick ass, and I just was so focused and laser focused on completing the record and getting to the vocals, and really because I left the vocals for last. There were sketches there, but I really left that for last because I really wanted to flesh out some of the lyrics and everything and make sure that I was saying what I wanted to say. And it's really incredible. It's like, my mom had passed and I grieved. And I wrote a song for her called "Smile, Fly for Me," and basically, if it wasn't for my parents, I'd never be playing guitar. They just totally supported me in a time when playing a guitar was like, growing up in the South Bronx, and you want a guitar, and you come from humble beginnings, and money's tight, and for my pops and mom to buy me a guitar and an amplifier. Then I was on my own. I was able to get my own after that. But for them to see that and have that journey begin and see them do some really cool things. It's like, okay, they saw me on fucking Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. They saw me on Live Aid. They saw me on the Cher Show and all these different programs. They saw their son on TV while they're sitting up at 1755 Anthony Avenue in the Bronx, and the whole family.
And the whole building was up in there in the apartment watching.
Yeah. And, so the cathartic aspect is, I wrote a song for my mom, and it's really basically about, it's called "Smile." And she taught me that, first of all, to always be yourself. When you ask me about how come I'm the way that I am with all the accomplishments that I've made, look, we're all self-absorbed to a certain degree, but there's no way that I can comport myself in a way that's brash or braggadocious, in any way. It's just not the way I was brought up, so I am, I'm just me. But when I was putting the lyrics together and when I finally got to sing the song that I had written for my mom, it's like I couldn't sing. I couldn't finish it. I couldn't. I sobbed in a way that I think it was really the first time I'd really a culmination of grief and sobbing and uncontrollable tears and things like that. I just had to tell the engineer. Luckily, it was just he and I in the studio. He says, "Look, just stop, and I need to sit down for a while," and because I couldn't mouth the words, Craig, and so I let it out, and I said, "Let's go to something else." So I went to something else, and I came back to it the following week, and then I was able to complete it because I'd gone through that process. But it was really, and that's what I learned from the record is how healing music is, because it was really, I feel as if I was really able to let go of some shit that I hadn't do before.
Thanks, man. That was cool of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk about some of the songs. I love the whole record, but 3 tracks I want to talk about. Majestic. It's incredibly just what a soulful, strong rock anthem. The licks are great, but even the little fills you did all the way through, like just fucking perfect. But the lyrics and you sing them, this was really intense. And this is like, I got goosebumps when I heard this. Every time I hear this, actually, these lines, because that's what I'm saying. You're like really going. That's what my person. You're really going for. How does it feel to be bathed in holy water, blowing my mind? It's such a waste of time. What's the backstory to that? That was pretty deep shit.
Yeah, it's pretty deep, and the religious metaphors aren't. They're just meant to convey something. It's basically about judgment. It's about righteous indignation. It's about forgiveness. it's about the song is about forgiveness, you know, and so, you know, who are you to judge someone? You haven't walked in their shoes, and you know, it's just a matter of common respect that we should all give one another, you know, and being kind to
Wow.
is really, really big in my book. So,
That's
uh,
really,
so that's what the song's about.
goosebumps again, man. That's really intense.
Thank
That's
you.
really cool, man.
It was tough writing those lyrics, man.
Yeah.
It
I
was
would
like,
imagine this is like some, some shit you got to dig out there, man.
yeah, because you know,
No wonder why it's cathartic, man. You went, you went into
oh,
the well.
yeah, like, who hasn't been in an experience that they're feeling um, uh, judged in a way that is totally anathema to who they are as a human being,
Yeah.
you know? And you know, I've experienced that
Yeah.
of that type of judgment, you know, that is just it's just like wow.
No,
Yeah,
I have too, man. It's like beyond absurd.
yeah. So
It's like, who the fuck are you? You have,
yeah,
like, exactly what you said. You haven't walked in my shoes,
exactly.
and I've done a pretty damn good job having walked in them. And you're not, you're passing. Yeah, I totally get it, man.
And you know, and to forgive is like I've got to forgive those who've passed judgment on me too. So it's
Yeah.
you got to stay true to what you're saying. You know, it's like, and you just, but you've got to say it. So
Yeah,
that,
I haven't read that chapter yet.
that's the most powerful chapter, my brother.
I know. I'm working on it. What guitar are you playing on there? It sounded like a Les Paul.
Yeah, it's a Briggs. I played a Jack Briggs Apollo.
Oh, that's okay. That's right.
Yeah, and a 61 SG Les Paul. And there's also I played a Strata, John Suhr Stratocaster with his noiseless pickup system for these jangly guitars in the middle sections.
And I just want to say thank you. The closing solo. Oh
Oh man,
my
thanks.
God, what were you like? Who were you pissed off at when you did that?
Oh, yeah, it's really kind of has as an anger there, which is kind of, hey man, being from New York, man, it's like
It's a lot. We got a lot to be pissed off at,
oh
man.
shit. My wife was born and raised in Oregon, man, so it's like you know the
Hey,
New York Bronx anger. I mean,
my
it's like
wife is this born and raised in a small village in the UK.
okay, man. So,
So I feel you
yeah,
100%.
it's like yeah. So I've gotten a lot better with that, man. I've gotten a lot better, but yeah, I wanted to let it out in that way, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the SG through I'm playing out of a Badger, one of John's amps, and I'm using this. I used a lot of Bluto Tone on the record too. Bluto
What
Tone,
is that?
it's an amplifier company. One guy, Brandon Montgomery, makes these amps. They're incredible amps. I
Where's he
use
out of?
that. Pardon?
Where's he out of?
He's out of Colorado.
Bluto.
Yeah, Bluto Tone.
Ludo?
He makes these, yeah, it's out of Colorado, and he makes these Dumble style amplifiers, and they're incredible machines. And I use John Suhr's Badger, his trusted Badger, man. I used his custom audio 100-watt head. What else did I use? A Three Monkeys, Grease Monkey. That
Oh
was
yeah, that's Brad Whitford, I think.
Brad Whitford's company. Yep. And it's modified with some 6L6s, 6V6s
Oh,
actually.
my brother, you broke out all the gear for this record.
Oh,
This is just on one song.
yeah. I think I used mostly that Three Monkeys cabinet with some G1265s. That was most of the speakers in terms of speaker cabinets. And then I have a black panel deluxe reverb with a 60s chassis and all that stuff that's modified by Bill Crenard of Two Rock fame. You know,
Okay.
so
It's
that's
great.
pretty much the gist of what I use, and assorted Stratocasters, and did use Les Paul on there too, as well as Jack's guitars, and good stuff.
Great track.
Thank
Title track, Akosua. Explain that song, man. It is so beautiful. And
Well, Kosi is my wife's middle name, and she's part Ghanaian, and in the Ghanaian culture, part of the name that's given is the day of the week the child is born and the gender. So Akosia means baby girl born on a Sunday. So I named it after her. She's been an incredible joy and an incredible love of my life. And
It's the first time you're getting all quiet, man.
yeah, uh, she's made me a
Some
better
props
man.
from her when you listen to that, when she listens.
And the spoken word is by her late father, and it's in Twi, which is the native language, and it's just really basically he's talking to his ancestors about the birth of a child and also our marriage. And so it's a really special. Just took out the iPhone and had him do. He called it a libation, and he did that, and I was able to fly it into the track. It was great.
And so before anybody starts thinking this is like, oh, some world music bullshit, it's no, because sometimes, you know what I mean? And people, oh, this world,
No.
and it just sounds like a freaking bad National Geographic documentary. This is, I mean, or, it's like, oh, wow, good. You're including some, minorities from poor countries in there. Great. This is really good, man. This is not,
Oh,
this is
to me, it's like it's a theme. It's a
yeah.
cool theme. It's got big guitars on it. The changes are cool. I mean, there's a lot of cool riffage going on. There's a lot of cool melodies going on and motifs and things like that. So I'm really happy with that track. It's kind of like if I were to score something for a film, it'd be something like that.
Boom. There you go. It's wonderful, man. And his voice and the timbre of his voice is like, it's a very safe place, orally,
Yes.
and it's like, man, like when I hear it, that's what I want to listen, like I want to listen to that guy put me to sleep at night or something.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
very, it's very safe, uh, calming. And then
He was, God rest his soul. He was such a gentleman, a kind human being.
yeah.
So well read. He was a metallurgist by trade, and still working up until the point that he passed away.
Yeah.
He was consulting companies on metallurgy and things like this. He was, he was, he was still really active. It was a huge loss to the family.
Beautiful song. On the opening guitars, what kind of effects are that?
The opening, that's my Sir Strat through probably a really clean Fender amp with a chorus.
I thought it was a chorus, but it's not like full on chorus. It's just
No, it's
perfect.
different. It was actually an Orion chorus, man, which is a really cool chorus for not a lot of money, and it's got a lot of flexibility because it's almost as if you morphed a chorus with a rotary kind of sound at the same time.
Yeah.
It works really well in certain applications. And the last thing I was thinking is I was going to use a chorus on a record, but I mean, you just have to go with what works because sometimes chorus. The whole chorus thing was so prevalent in the '80s. It was a time when I didn't want to see another chorus.
Yeah. But it sounds great, man. It's really, because I was listening to it, I'm like, chorus. This is a chorus, man. But wait a minute, this is like 1980s. But this sound, so it doesn't sound. It's perfect, man. You did a great job with it.
What's past the prologue, all this shit comes back around again in one form or another, man.
But it's an effect on it. It's just perfect. It's not like, okay, let me, it's not a whole passage of fret masturbation with it. It's very appropriate. But I was curious, what effect? And you had like overdrive on it. Is that an effect, or are you just cranking the amp? Because there's a little overdrive comes in on the chorus.
Yeah, there is. On the B sections, I was just overdriving the amp.
Okay.
I forget what amp I was using, but it was probably the Badger with a stomp box in front of it. And what I wanted to emulate was kind of like, because I was using the wang bar to kind of like slide in these chords, so I would slide in, I would wang down, and so I would slide the chords, under to almost as if a string section was. I was approaching the guitar in an orchestral way, so I'm just like sliding the chords up as they go into the B sections, and that was so much fun to do. I love doing that, man, because the chords are kind of like, they kind of altered chords rather. They're not really your stock chords that you hear like in most rock music, and I like just putting some different flavors and tastes in there, just to kind of give it a Oh, wow, what was that? That kind of deal. You
Man, you
know?
did a great job. I'm just amazed at how much different stuff is going on there. Just like one guy, it's not like you had a team of 40 dudes, you know, in production. I mean, I'm just so blown away by
Yeah,
every,
and
it's just one guy doing all this stuff.
yeah, and Jose played the percussion on that, man. He
That's what I
did
was going to ask. Is he the same? Was he the same guy as the drummer or is a separate percussionist?
a separate percussionist, Jose Rossi.
Badass percussion on that track,
Oh
man.
man, he played in Weatherport when Victor Bailey and Omar were in that band, and Wayne Shorter. That was he played with Weather. He's a bad cat. We go way back, man. We started out, in the biz together. Still a great friend to this
Another
day.
Bronx dude?
Oh no, he's from Puerto Rico, but he lived in the Bronx. When he auditioned for Labelle, I mean, Jose had been in New York less than a week, man. He came into audition with
Oh my God.
two drumsticks in his pocket, man. That was it. He didn't come with any equipment, any gear. No, he had two drumsticks, man. And he
That's so cool.
Yeah, man. Oh, it was great musician.
That's so cool. How many guitar tracks are in that song?
Oh man, not that many. Let's see. I had the main rhythm guitar. I think I maybe doubled some aspects of it, and then a dirty guitar with those slides that I play. Then solo, and then an outro solo, and then like a shang-a-lang rhythm guitar as the outro begins. So,
Is that an official word?
Yeah, that's guitar players. Shang-a-lang, shang-a-lang.
That's my favorite track to listen. I mean, I love so many tracks, but I love it specifically for your father-in-law's voice because it's just always like.
Oh man, he had some dulcet tones, man. That shit was deep.
It's just very, like I said, it's very calm. I like to get in that state, of calm.
Mm-hmm.
That very, very.
Yeah,
nice.
really, when I hear it, it still puts a smile on my face. And that's good. It's like when you hear something back, it's just, wow, it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just want to talk about the last song, Fornard.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful ballad. Again, I was curious, is it a Telly or a Strat you got in there? The whole track is very Jeff Beck-like.
Yeah. Actually, it's a tone painting I wrote for Bernard Edwards. And
so cool. I like that word. It's a tone painting. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's just a 2-minute piece, instrumental. It's I'm playing John Strat and also playing a guitar by this company called Ronin, and it's a Morning Star, and I'm using
Ronin.
Correct. And that through I think it's actually there's a Bluto tone on the clean channel. And with in a TC, there's a TC, an old school TC chorus on that. It's so subtle.
You hear the chorus in the beginning, I think.
So subtle, yeah, and really squeaky clean with a lot of verbs and delays and stuff like that to make it kind of like I wanted it to be lush. So the bass comes in, around halfway through the piece, and then all the other things. I think I did use a guitar synth thing on this electroharmonics kind of deal, and. So those are the guitars that I use: the Sir Strat and the Ronin, and the Badger.
Beautiful ballad that song is, man. I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah. You grew up in the South Bronx. You had brothers, older brothers?
Oh yeah, I mean I come from a family of 7.
Oh, I didn't know that. 7?
Yeah.
God bless your parents. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, 7. I'm right in the middle, so I'm the diplomat.
My God. Yeah, the peacemaker, the middle child.
Yeah, middle child, 3 older, 3 younger.
Oh wow. I'm still just gonna process that family of 7. Holy shit. I bitch about that I had 3. Shame on me. It's like shame. I'm serious. This is like, parent warriors, man. 7 kids. Good Lord, man.
Incredible. Having so lucky, incredible parents. Whoa.
Yeah. Did any of your other siblings wind up playing music?
No, I mean, they were interested. There was an interest. My younger brother, Ralph, played in some drum and bugle corps for a minute. But no, generally, no. They were interested. They would pick up my bass and try to make some noise with it and stuff from time to time. But No, genuinely, they love music, but not to the point that they wanted to, really kind of do the hard work of playing.
Sure. Are they all around the country? Some in New York still, or?
Well, my two of my elder siblings passed. My brother
Sorry,
passed
man.
about 4 years ago, and my sister passed away around 20 years ago. So I
Wow.
have an
Sorry.
older brother who lives in Florida, actually,
Right.
outside of Orlando, and great brother. I mean, I'm so, I mean, my brothers are just, man. It's like we're tight, all my brothers, and then the rest of my immediate family is here in
In Oregon.
yeah, in Oregon.
That's great. That's really cool. That's great, man.
And then I have a daughter that lives in Long Island.
Right. Very cool, man. Um, so this is a tough question, and I'm taking advantage because I know you, so I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
Um, on the record, as I mentioned, everything it's incredibly passionate. You're singing and the playing, but what attracts me to it is the edge that it has and the rage that's inside of it. To be honest with you, I mean it's
Mhm.
beautiful, but there's fire in there. The fire is burning. So I wanted to ask you, if you're comfortable answering, what emotional pain does music allow you to work through, and where does that edge come from?
Well, I think the edge comes from growing up in the inner city, um, growing up in the Bronx. It's like I tell people, it's like your life experience has so much to do with who obviously who you are and what you are. And when you grow up in the city, you see a lot of shit, and growing up in the Bronx, back in the day in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, you saw a lot of shit, man, and you learn how to deal with it. You learn how to have like eyes in the back of your head.
Mm,
You're carrying a guitar, you're coming back from a gig at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're like 16, 17 years old, and you're walking 5 blocks, 5 city blocks to get to your apartment. And it's the wee hours of the morning, and anything can happen. That therein lies kind of like a tension that albeit I'm in a much more idyllic kind of environment living in the Pacific Northwest. It's beautiful here. But some of that shit just doesn't leave you,
yeah.
and also the aspect of failure, because we've all had our wins and we've all had our failures.
Yeah.
And a lot of anger comes through, failures. Even though my mom said you have to be thankful to God for the good, but you also have to be thankful for what goes wrong and what's bad, because therein lies a lesson or a secret that you can internalize to make your life better. And it's kind of hard because initially you push back on that concept, but for me, those are wise words. So all those things, it's even to this day. I've been here 18 years almost, and I'm still have that edge to me. It's kind of like we were talking earlier. I remember, back in the day, it's like I've got a downbeat at 9 o'clock for a jingle, and somebody broke into my car the night before, and I'm driving down. It's like freaking 20 degrees with the wind blowing in my face at like
Yeah.
8 o'clock in the morning, trying to make this downbeat. And there's no way that can't have an impact on you or on how you do your business. And it's like in play, it brings out an edge to you. It wants you to cut to the chase faster, wants you to just deliver the goods in a much more efficient way. So that's the only way I can attribute.
Yeah. It's funny. Years ago, I used to write in my marketing business a newsletter. So one day, my wife said, "Here, you need to put this check." I was on the phone, and she was waiting to talk to me or something, and she was just like scrabbling, and she just wrote a list. It was quite funny. She goes, "You need to put this in your newsletter." And it was like top 10 ways to piss Craig off, and she said, "Number one, ask him the same thing twice. Number two, ask him the same thing twice." Number three, ask him the same question twice. It was like 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 10 the version of this. It was like, because he and I as you're talking, I'm thinking about now, like, yeah, I don't like, that's your sensitivity to, like, um there's a lot of pressure that you're constantly under there. And looking back as an adult at my at my childhood versus my children's, or you versus your daughter, the coping skills are not there for you to have that pressure. You don't know how to handle it. A lot of the adults around you don't know how to handle it. And it's just like, it's a bit of a pressure cooker because of that, you know? That's when she wrote, I was just thinking about that list she wrote, because that's where it comes from. It's like, like I talked to this guy the other day, really sweet musician. He was telling me that he went on, he did this retreat. It was like a meditation thing. And, he some process, and I said, man, I give you credit for doing that. If someone said, hey man, we're going to do this thing, I'd be like, man, all right, you got 45 minutes, like, we're not doing a fucking 10-day retreat. I don't have time for that, which, he's much more patient, and I'm not, but all this went through my mind when you were saying that, because it's so true. So true.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, sorry, man, this is not about me. I apologize.
No, it's cool, man. I feel you, man.
It's like favorite players you've enjoyed jamming with.
Oh my goodness.
You got a list.
Oh man. There's so many great players that I've played with. Needless to say, Tony Thompson, Bernard Edwards, who was a mentor.
Did he pass, or is he still alive?
Yeah, passed away around 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was a mentor. He made a way. He had a way of making shit feel so good in the recording process. He was the kind of producer that just kind of like, it just felt good. And there were laughs, and he created an environment that was so comfortable that people they over-delivered. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? Because an environment, so I've enjoyed playing with Bernard. I love playing with Steve Ferroni. He played on a lot of records. Will Lee, oh my God, playing with Will. Every time, it's always been a joy. He elevates every situation he's in. Carmine Rojas, the same thing. Carmine has such a unique way of playing, and he elevates every situation that he's in. Charlie Drayton, Tao Bergman, Kenny Aronoff, great players. Got to give props to my New York crew, Jimmy Hazel, Ronnie Drayton, Ira Siegel, these great cats and studio players and artists respectively. There's some Jeff Mironoff, Hugh McCracken. I remember doing a session with Hugh McCracken. It was one of my really early sessions, and I had such respect for him because I knew his pedigree and his background as a guitarist. And so we're working on this tune called "I Need You" by Harlem River Drive, and we cut this track, and he liked my rhythm guitar part, and that was coming from a pro like that. It was really it put a real big smile on my face and let me know at least my concepts and thoughts were really kind of in a direction that were really working. And John Robinson, another great drummer. Wow, I can go on and on.
Thanks, man. What's the best guitar and best amp you've ever played? Whether you owned it or not, doesn't matter.
Best guitar. Wow. I look at that as guitars for applications. When I think about my arc as a guitarist, Craig, it's really interesting. I consider myself primarily a Strat player, but in the 80s, I kind of put I use Strats really in application, and I used it on pop and funk tracks. And then I went to the Gibson style guitars for the bigger guitars. And then, later on in the 80s, then you had like the Jacksons and the Hamers and things like that, where they were incorporating aspects of the humbuckers with the Floyd Rose. Because, I was kind of old school. I could never put a Floyd Rose on a Strat. And even early on, I knew that my 57 and 58 Strat was going to be something that I wasn't going to alter, but I look at favorite guitars. I would have to say my old Strats, Gibson Les Pauls are always good. Love Les Paul Juniors. Those are great guitars. Amplifiers, anything that did the job. I just look at those things as tools.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to dwell on, you know, I'd rather get a sound that fits the song. So whatever it is, it could be a fucking, you know, piece of junk, you know, you know, yeah, it gets the tone, man. If it gets what you're looking for, whether it's a prominent tone or a textural component, you know, then I'm all for it.
Desert Island Discs, man. No particular order, just for this moment.
Ooh,
Top
man.
3.
I think. Well, I'd have to put Beatles Revolver in there. Electric Ladyland, and Debussy. Anything by Debussy, preferably Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, something like that, or La Mer, you know, Arabesque number 1.
So many players have mentioned Debussy.
Oh, Debussy was just.
Yeah. What is that? Prelude to Afternoon?
Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun. And then I'd have to throw in, I know that's 3, but.
Honorable mention?
Yeah, honorable mention, something by Ravel or Puccini, Tosca, you know?
Mm-hmm. Best decision you ever made?
Best decision I ever made was to leave New York. It was the most difficult decision I ever had to make. So it's really kind of like, you know.
Bittersweet,
very sad, you know. 28-year marriage coming to an end, you know, and leaving and having to leave. And therein lies, you know, some complications, big complications that still exist relative to relationships and things like that, you know, but it happened to be the best move as well because I met my wife here, and I'm in a really, really good place and space and frame of mind and heart.
Thanks, man. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
You know, because I've told you already. So I'm just saying it for the air. I mean it, but I've told you that already. Oh, God, this is a tough question. If you could change something about yourself, one thing, what would it be?
Change one thing about myself. Well, about myself personally, or decisions that I've made relative to my career?
No, I think like about yourself personally, character or something like that.
You know, it's like, in some ways I'm a paradox, because in some ways I'm a really mellow cat. I'm a nice cat, but then I've got this edge to me that's like this kind of Bronx kind of anger kind of deal that's going on. So it's kind of like
I know that, dude.
You know, it's kind of like one side I'm walking in, you know, on 4-4, and my other leg is like fucking 11-8. You know, it's like. You know what I mean?
I know another guy like that, man.
Yeah, so it's like
my wife says that about me all the time. Really? Not all the time. She says it less and less because I'm really working hard on to be USA, you know, the more zen. I really am. But she still periodically says, you know, you're 2 people. And it's the same shit what you just said.
Yeah. Well, I think what I have learned was that I up until recently, the last few years, I haven't been as present as I should be. And that means really being in the moment and really living in a state of gratitude, man, is really, really big. We all have our burdens. We all have shit on our back. Everybody's had their own cross to bear, their own piano on their back.
Absolutely.
And how to get through that and live in the moment and don't let the past control you today.
Right.
That would be my parting words of, do not let the past control who you are today. In so many ways, it's irrelevant.
Well, the thing is, man, it actually has nothing to do with who you are today unless you make it. That's the whole, it's up to you.
Yes. And therein lies the lesson for everyone. And it's a practice, it's something like, it's an ongoing kind of thing you need to constantly work on. And I'm really, in a state of gratitude, man. Got to live that way.
Eddie, most exciting experience you've had?
Most exciting experience. Wow. There've been so many. I'd say, my wedding day was freaking exciting, man. We had a freaking, it was so much fun. It was great because we had this whole weekend planned with family and friends, and they all flew in, and it was just a joyous occasion. And it was like a reunion of friends and family, and there just happened to be a wedding in the middle of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How long you been married now?
Be 3 years in October.
All right, congratulations,
and, my wife and I, we've been together for 15 years.
Yeah, I know you've been together a long time. That's great. Yeah. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the 15 years. That's a lot of years. That's a lot of years, man.
Yeah. And, so that was exciting. And, so many musical situations that were exciting, man. I'll tell you a funny story, man. I'm a big Yankee fan. So we're doing the Arsenio Hall show, right? And we just finished playing Simply Irresistible, and we go back into the green room, and we're just all amped, and I knew Dave Winfield was going to be on the show,
cool.
So,
center fielder for the Yankees, man.
I've worked with all these big stars, man, and I never lost my cool, and Dave Winfield's sitting in the green room, and for a moment, I lost it. Just, oh, snap, Dave Winfield. And then, I came to my senses, man. It's so funny, man. That's funny. Yeah, because I'm such a crazy Yankee fan, man. So
he seemed really mellow, Winfield. He probably was very nice, I would imagine.
Yeah, he seemed cool. He was cool. But I must have
lost it. That's funny, man. What's his name? Bernie
Williams.
Yeah, he's like a major.
Oh, he's a great
jazz guitar player. Yeah.
And he was my favorite Yankee. I've never met Bernie, but we have mutual friends. And he was my favorite Yankee, man. I love the way he played center field. I love the way he comported himself on the field and at bat. He could hit the ball from both sides. Oh man, I'm a big Bernie Williams fan. And as a football player, I'm even more so of a fan of his playing.
But he must really be a talented guy. And I've tried to get him on here because it's so hard to be excellent in one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been excellent in two completely different careers, and he's at the top performance and tranche in both. That's a really special individual that could do that.
Yeah, and he's we have mutual friends, and I know he's put in the work.
Yeah,
and so he's a great player.
Who's had the biggest influence on you musically and also personally?
Biggest influence on me musically, I think working with Bernard Edwards and Robert Palmer as well. I mean, boy, I tell you, I'd have to put Val Burke in this equation. He was the bassist in Mother Night, and like when I joined the band, I was 18, and his level of musicianship and his overall appreciation and knowledge of music had a profound effect on me. And he's a monster musician.
He's still active today? He
doesn't play anymore. He's a few years older than me. He just kind of hung it up and stuff, and we're still friends. But when he was in his heyday, he was a bad cat in Queens, and all the bassists that have come through Queens have all know about Val Burke, whether it's Marcus Miller or Barry Johnson and all the greats that have come out of Queens. They all know as Val as the avuncular cat, man, that was, giving lessons and stuff, not necessarily about playing bass, but about music in general. And it's really interesting, Bernard Edwards too, as I said, working in the studio with him on so many records, you learn what to do and you learn what not to do. And it's just really, it's incredible. I mean, how the way he had this innate way of making things feel good and tracks feel good. And from the basic tracks, when you're just putting the foundational shit, man, it's just, and then Robert, his overall musicality and his whole adventuristic aspect of music, of incorporating all different styles of music, was really profoundly important to me.
And personally?
Personally, I think my parents have had a profound effect on me, and my wife. My wife has made me a better human being, and appreciate myself a bit more. I'm a bit hard on myself, so I think she's really taught me how to lean into some of this shit. Because I'm kind of a private guy, Craig. And it's almost kind of like, it's like oil and water, man. Because ostensibly I've been in the entertainment music kind of deal, and all of a sudden, and I'm kind of like a private cat. So I mean, I'm leaning into it, man. I'm kind of enjoying it too, because I think I'm talking about some shit that I readily wouldn't talk about in a multimedia kind of facet where it's reaching a lot of people. So,
well, I got to tell you, man, even like with you and I, man, we talked, like, there was just something, we talked about some pretty personal, pretty deep shit.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like when and I don't normally do that. I told you that. I said, hey, I called you and said, hey, man, you mentioned something to me, and I don't normally talk about this. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool, because we don't really know each other, but I feel comfortable. So I understand that, man. I'm the same way.
Yeah. So she's really helped me in leaning into this stuff.
That's good.
Embracing myself and my career historically and what I'm doing now. And she really implemented it. She really kicked me in my butt. Says, get off your fucking ass and start playing your guitar and showing people who you are and what you do and what you've done. And
yeah, man.
She's the reason I go on stage now. She's been the catalyst, and I'm forever grateful.
That's great, man. I'm going to ask you three more questions, Eddie.
Okay.
Has your life been different than what you'd imagined?
Yes. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I never would have imagined that I'd be living in the Pacific Northwest. I never imagined I'd be living
that's wild.
Portland, and moving from New York to Portland was an adjustment for me at first, but
sure.
It's a beautiful place to live. I mean, the winters get spritzy and cloudy, and then I go on my own fucking rant about that shit, and but the summers come along.
Hey, man, they get horrible in New York.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Up there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, when you go through like freaking 30 days of gray and spritz and gloom, it's like you sometimes
that's
up in the morning.
That's over the top.
Is it, man? It feels like is it 4:30 in the afternoon? It says no, it's 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow.
So a lot of vitamin D and all that.
This is not one of the questions. What's the New York City food you miss the most?
You know what, man? It's like I miss being able to order like Chinese and have it delivered to you like really fast. I mean, it's like it's like you hang up the phone and someone's knocking the door. It's like, what do they have, a walk in the fucking car? Oh man, we got a kung pao chicken over here, man. Come on, pass me the soy sauce.
Oh my God.
Or something like that. But I mean, I love that aspect, but Portland is a badass food town. They take
I would imagine,
and beer here. It's a badass culinary destination. Yeah,
and weed is legal. So for all you people listening, got everything there.
Oh my God, it's hilarious, man. It's when they market this shit, they had a freaking place, it was called Ground Zero. It's like, I mean, come on, it's like crazy. The names for some of these places, and then some of them, their merchandise, like, Pottery Barn, man. It's like you walk in, it's kind of like, wow, it's like crazy.
But you know what's funny? There are kids who grew up with all this stuff that they couldn't imagine it not existing.
Yeah, well, we'll see what, I think that some of the CBD aspects of the medicinal aspects for pain
Oh
and
yeah,
are just profound because we
I agree.
experienced that with my father-in-law and Sarah's dad, and the CBD treatment, and when you're in really, in some serious pain from cancer, it was a godsend. So those things have a profound help for people who are really ill. Now, the other, the aspects of it for, entertainment or just getting a buzz, that's
Yeah,
a whole other thing. I've been there, done that. It's not my thing anymore.
yeah. No, I hear you.
I
I'm the
don't
same.
really roll that way, you know.
No, I'm the
Luckily,
same.
I never had a, I never had any kind of a addiction kind of thing. And I'm grateful for that.
Oh my God, yeah, I am as well. Any hobbies outside of music?
Hobbies that, well,
I know you're a big reader for sure.
Yeah, I love reading. Historically I've been I love reading, and but I love cinema too. I'm a big movie fan, and I'm a lover of old movies. I'm a lover of movie scores, and some of the current film scores. I love their work. Hans Zimmer, Thomas Newman, and Lyle Workman, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lyle Workman. What a
Lyle is
badass.
he's in that milieu, man, and he's doing it, man. He's just he played me some stuff that he's currently working on, and he turned me on to this beautiful piece called by Peter Warlock. It's called Capril's Suite, and I think he did a version of it on his Harmonic Warrior album, man. I urge people to go check that out. It's a beautiful piece that he just did with Evos and stuff. It's just killer.
Great record that is.
Yeah, it is.
And last question: anything you regret not doing?
I thought about that. And yeah, what I do regret, Craig, is that I didn't leap into creating a solo career for myself soon. I should have done it a lot sooner. I should have done it a lot sooner. I think and I thought I was doing it with distance because I turned down a tour with Robert to go and sign with Warner Brothers and make this record, which is really I love the album. I mean, it's got the big 80s sound and the big 80s verbs and stuff like that. So if you're still into the big mega crunch shit from the late 80s, it had this funk
That's
rock
under the one under the one sky.
under the one sky. There's some
Yeah.
great tracks on that I'm still proud. I'm proud of that record, and it was a lot of fun to do. I wish we would have done a second effort. And I thought that was my moment to kind of break out and be a part of a collective. But I think concurrent with that, I should have really focused on a solo career much more ardently. And that is a regret. And that's why I'm doing my records now. I need to I feel an urge at this point in my career and everything to really, to put out content every year. I need to put stuff out.
You do need to, because that shit was great.
Oh, thanks.
Man,
Thanks.
you do need to.
Yeah, so my plans are for the back end of this year, I'm going to put an EP out of tracks that I've had in the can for like 25 years.
Great.
And that were recorded with Jason Corsaro. If anybody knows recording engineers, Jason Corsaro was a madman, great, iconoclastic kind of engineer. And we cut some tracks that have been in the can. I put them up recently. I says, oh man, this shit still rocks. It's not, doesn't sound dated. It's not wang bar-y. You know what I mean? It's not, there are no dive bombs on it. And, it holds up. I was using more kind of organic instruments, rather than the pointy guitars, which had its purpose, but I just wish that I would have really made that lead,
Well, dude, Akosua, beautiful record. I'm going on record here for you saying when you get the new record, you're going to come on here and promote it. So I want to hear it, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, absolutely.
Man, listen, thank you for everything. I'm really glad we got to connect, man. Thank you. Beyond this.
So much fun.
Thank you so much for everything, man. everybody, I want you to please check out Eddie Martinez's latest record. It's called Akosua. It's spelled Akosia. You can find it on CD Baby. You can find it on iTunes and on Amazon. It's Eddie Martinez. And go to his website and sign up to get on his list at eddiemartinezguitar.com. Couple other things. If you're looking to see Eddie, if you're out in the the Portland area, on his website, he's got whatever local gigs he's got, which are becoming more and more frequent. Also, he's available if you're looking for any kind of I guess lessons or consultation. Really, I mean, he's got a very wide breadth of experience. As far as lessons, like please be an intermediate or a more experienced player than that even. And you can connect with him on the contact tab of his website again, which is Eddie Martinez Guitar. And man, anything I missed or any final words of wisdom?
Oh man, just an absolute pleasure. I think that the spelling on Akosua is Akosua.
Right. Akosua. I'm sorry. I thought I said Akosua, but it's pronounced Akosua. But just look up look up Eddie Martinez, man. There's not going to be like 100 Eddie Martinez's unless you're looking in the Bronx phone book. But like on iTunes, I think you'd be all right. Man, thank you for everything.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, man. This is so much fun. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity.
Oh, come on, man. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels and subscribe to the podcast. We really appreciate your support. I really want everybody to go check out Eddie Martinez's album. It's great. It's Akosua, Akosua. It is just it's a killer record. If you are a guitar player, there's literally not one track in there you're going to not enjoy. This is just great production, great engineering. The songwriting is phenomenal. He sings. He's got a beautiful voice, man. So please check it out, Akosua, Akosua. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our news. And thank you so much for your time, bro. You've been really generous.
Oh, thank you so much, man. So appreciate it.
Anytime, Eddie. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out.
Yeah, bye-bye.